So, last time we left off with Joshua and the leaders of Israel talking with these ambassadors who were from a faraway country, right? But they were really nearby, because we read ahead and we know. They were from nearby. And they dressed up in worn out clothes, brought old bread and all that good stuff, just because they wanted to create that illusion that they were from far away, because they wanted to deceive Joshua and the leaders of Israel. So let's read on from there where we left off in Joshua 9, 14 and 15. Then the men of Israel took some of their provisions, but they did not ask counsel of the Lord. So Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant with them to let them live. And the rulers of the congregation swore to them. So what happened in these verses takes us back to a point that's come up several times in this particular study, that we must walk by faith, not by sight, in our promised land to have victory over the enemy. I'm just getting right into gear. Hi, Laquita. Hi, Chris. Chris is there too. Say hi, Chris. Hi, Laquita. Because what did they do? They looked at the men that came to them. They looked at their clothes. They looked at the old food. Maybe they hadn't taken a bath and they smelled. I don't know. They looked at the sights and sounds, and they just made a decision. And they made a decision to enter a covenant. They believed on their words and what they saw. They didn't take time to do what?
Counsel of the Lord.
Counsel of the Lord. They did not seek out God. They didn't walk by their faith. They walked by their sight, right? It's a big mistake when you start looking at circumstances and making decisions just based on circumstances when you're not asking God what He thinks about the whole thing. So we know that verse, for we walk by faith, not by sight, from 2 Corinthians 5:7. It's a good one to memorize and call to mind when you're starting to make decisions. Am I doing things by the way God wants me to do them? So what else does God tell us in Proverbs 3:5-6? With all your heart you must trust the Lord and not your own judgment. Always let Him lead you, and He will clear the road for you to follow. We must not rely on our own judgment. We must trust God and let Him lead us. We sometimes think we know everything, or that we know enough to make decisions when we may not really know the whole picture, just like they didn't know the whole picture about these guys. Yes, Debbie?
Why did you use the CEV?
I liked the way it read.
But everybody knows the other one.
I know. I'm trying to throw you for a loop.
Kathy, what is
Contemporary English version.
No, it's the contemporary.
But quoted in regular.
Trust in the Lord and lean not on your own
Lean not on your own
understanding.
In
Yeah.
all your ways acknowledge Him. and
He will direct your paths.
But that's the one everybody knows. That's why.
Well, I'm trying to mess you up.
Oh, that is.
Trying to broaden our horizon.
That's right. Sometimes it's good. I like to look at other versions once in a while because I like to see other ways of things. It kind of jogs your brain. You know, you think about it differently.
But to me, it didn't even sound like
Really?
real verse. Go back and see. Let me see.
With all your heart.
You must trust the Lord and not your own judgment.
I think that's a good version.
I like reading lots of different versions.
I do too, but as far as memorizing, I figured the rest of us would know the other one.
Yeah, we do. But I just like the way this one read. Just thought I would
Let him
change it up a little
Just
bit.
kinda, yeah.
What version is yours?
So.
King James.
So what they should have done is should have stopped this discussion with these ambassadors, shouldn't they? They shouldn't have jumped right into a decision, made a promise, made a covenant with them. They should have stopped. You know, they were right there at Gilgal, their camp headquarters, where they did all their business and then went out into war, would come back home. That's where the tabernacle was. That's where the priests were. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was. They could have taken their time and gone consulted God. And they didn't. Instead, they just made a covenant with these total strangers, you know, just on one conversation, right? So what happened the last time they did not pray and seek God's counsel?
It wasn't good.
Do you remember what they did? You're right, it wasn't good. Yeah, they rushed out to battle at Ai. Huh?
They lost, right?
They lost. They were defeated. They had people killed. They were totally discouraged, all because they didn't stop to consult God before they went to battle. Like they had done at Jericho, they had God's orders when they went to Jericho, and they won that battle. At Ai, they didn't. And now what happened again? This is not. Oh,
Weren't they told not to make a covenant with anyone?
yes, and we'll get to that. You're right. Good job. So, my.
Teachers bad.
I gotta make up for all my sarcasm.
Yeah, she's in trouble right now, so. So, you know, we all have to make decisions, and sometimes we think we know enough, but we don't. We really need God's wisdom. Sometimes we know we need God's wisdom, we don't know enough. And there's a verse about that, James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. That's a wonderful verse, a wonderful promise. I love how it says he'll give to you liberally. But the point is, we also, once we ask, we need to wait and listen, right? Wait for the answer. Sometimes we still rush on ahead, even after we've prayed about something, and we don't wait for his answer about what's going on. So all we have to do is ask God, and he will give us all the wisdom we need. That's pretty cool. I know I need some more. So decisions, big or small, should be taken to God in prayer. Even the smallest decisions can have a ripple effect in your life. Sometimes we don't think so, but they do. You make one little decision, it could affect a whole lot of other things. So we may think it's too much to bother God with those little decisions. I can think of an example. This may sound silly to you. It's one I can think that's a really little decision. When we were first married, very poor, and so poor that when it came to our grocery budget, it was a very set amount of items each week that we bought, very budgeted, just to get through on basic eating. So one time we wanted ice cream from McDonald's. And I think at that time it was 25 cents. It might have been 10.
At least that's how Pastor told it.
Yeah, it may have been 10. I know it was very little money, but for us, that was everything. I mean, that contributed to whatever food we needed. So we stopped and we prayed, can we go spend this money to go get an ice cream? And God told us we could, and we did, and our finances worked out. I mean, it seems like a little bit of money, but it still was important, and we were really on a very strict budget. Every penny counted. So sometimes we don't want to bother God with those little things, but he does care about us, and he cares about our well-being, and he wants the best for us. So why wouldn't he care about those little decisions too that we have to make? You know, because you make a decision to turn right. Well, maybe you were supposed to turn left. It may seem like a little decision to turn right, but maybe it turned you into a problem. Shouldn't be there. So it's important. So remember the verse, you know this one, 1 Thessalonians 5:17. Pray without ceasing. So we are supposed to be praying or talking to God all throughout the day and night. So it is easy to take the big and small decision questions to him. You know, you can look at your decisions, no matter what they are, as another trigger that causes you to pray and talk to God. Because he wants us talking to him. That's part of the relationship. He wants us talking to him all day long. Just like you should use things that you come across during the day that you're thankful for. Use those moments to stop, talk to God, and express your thankfulness to him. There's things that happen to us all through the day that should motivate us to talk to God, and decisions definitely are a really big, important part of that. So the other problem with this decision with these leaders was that they entered in a covenant too quickly. I mean, they just have one meeting, really, and just instantly make a decision to make a covenant, which is a very serious agreement with these strangers. And good decisions never usually are made in a rush. Shouldn't rush. It's like if a salesman tells you, you got to buy this right now, sales going to end or prices are going up, you've heard about the economy, whatever sales pitch they tell you, you need to realize that's just them pushing you because people work, you know, they think the pressure will work to get you to buy. So we should never rush when making a decision. You should always have enough time to talk to God.
One of the telltale signs of scams is the urgency.
The urgency, yep, exactly.
You must do right away.
Mm-hmm. So here's another one in an easy reading version this time. Proverbs 19:2. Being excited about something is not enough. You must also know what you are doing. Don't rush into something or you might do it wrong. I thought that was an interesting translation on that.
I know. 3 years.
What is yours?
It is not good to have zeal without knowledge, not to be hasty and miss the way.
This is much more, I should look up the grade level. It's like contemporary English. No, Good News is 5th grade level, so we like that one.
How about the message?
Yeah, the message is, I have trouble with the message. It's so contemporary at spots that it's like,
Can you impress the
Can't
person?
find where it
yeah.
is.
Yeah, it's hard to differentiate the verses. Yeah, it's too, message is a little too hip and happening. I look at it, but
I like reading it, but it is
Yeah.
sometimes hard to find that verse.
yeah.
So where is it?
So give us the Good News or what's the one used for children, children's version?
Oh, there's
What's that?
ICB, International Children's Bible.
The one that you use, is that? what
We
you
use that once in a while for the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we use the Good News a lot for the kids because it's younger. And
That's great. I'm thinking maybe we need 4.
well, I need to look up what the easy reading translation is, and there's also the NIRV.
Okay, that's just too many.
It's an easy reading version for younger people as well. So sometimes it helps to take some of the wordy ones and switch them into a little lower grade level. Gives you a different.
It can help you understand it.
Hmm?
It can help you understand it to read different versions.
Yeah, it does. It does. So I don't do it all the time, but this week I like some of these verses in the different versions. And there's also Proverbs 21:5. Careful planning leads to profit. Acting too quickly leads to poverty.
Okay, now
I-
that's closer.
Is it?
That's kind of like Daryl's old saying of poor planning on your part does not constitute emergency life.
Oh, that's a very good one.
Oh, yes.
That's a good one. I like that one. That would be a good cross stitch one to do.
It's good until you get that too.
Unless that's,
Yeah.
So you're the teenager under the reign of the parent, right?
It means the same
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
So to be strong and victorious in the promised land, do not rush or be hasty in your decision making. Slow down. It's hard. You feel the pressure sometimes, whether it's from friends or from the salesman
Or time.
or time. You feel like you're running out of time. Yeah, and I got to make this decision. I've been trying to learn to do better. Give it some time. Wait. So there's another point that we can learn from these two verses in Joshua 14 and 15. What?
people, get people blank in their blank. And also Joshua's not on our team.
Let me see. No, that's coming.
So is Joshua like in now? Joshua was at the very
We
beginning?
read it at the beginning.
We're repeating the two verses for one more point.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep up, will you?
I gotta go all the way back up to that top.
Hi, Natalie. Natalie's on too.
Hi,
I
Natalie.
can see Natalie.
You made Natalie cry probably.
I'm sorry.
For real.
Just ignore Linda here, okay? So anyway, one more point about these two verses in 9, 14, and 15, which is where we started. Who were these people that made this agreement?
Strangers.
No, who made the agreement? Who said yes?
Joshua.
Joshua and the leaders, right? They made this agreement. Now, how do you see Joshua as a person after all of our weeks?
Until
Warrior.
now, he was, until now.
Strong
But he was
leaders.
wise,
He was wise.
but he wasn't acting wise in his case.
You would see him as a mature Christian, not a Christian, but a mature man of faith, right? Okay, because he hung out with Moses, right? He got all his education from Moses and God. He hung out in the tabernacle. He's not a young man, he's an older man now. He's been around, right? So this is a mature person that made this decision, a mature person in their faith who's close to God, right? He consulted God, he had the Lord talk to him directly on multiple occasions, right? So people mature in their faith can still fall in sin and make bad decisions. Sometimes we think we can handle it, right? But that's just when the devil likes to step in and kind of tempt you to do something you shouldn't. You think, oh, it's okay. I've heard this one a lot. I can watch that movie because I'm mature. It's not going to bother me. But in reality, you still may be planting things in your brain that later could cause you to fall. So even though you're mature, you got to think about the decisions you make, what you're doing.
Pastor said that on Sunday. Something about just being older or just being more mature doesn't help you against these evil, because they're hitting you all the time. So
Right.
you gotta be careful.
Yeah, and
The
you
more
might.
devout you are, the harder you're attacked.
Yeah,
You
true.
know?
True. So you need to be careful that Joshua fell, who you wouldn't think would fall into this decision. Because like we were talking about, Miss Connie, here's the law that they were told. You did this. Deuteronomy 20:16 through 18. But of the cities of these peoples, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, you shall let nothing that breathes remain alive. But you shall utterly destroy them, the Hittite and the Amorite and the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite and the Jebusite, just as the Lord your God has commanded you, lest they teach you to do according to all their abominations, which they have done for their gods, and you sin against the Lord your God. So they've been given a commandment. It was quite clear. Moses told Joshua and everybody, you can't go into this land and leave these people here because they're going to lead you astray. They're too far gone in their idol worship and their lifestyle. They're not going to help you any, so you need to take care of them. So what Joshua did was wrong. He broke the Lord's commandment when he made this agreement. So what did Paul remind us of in 1 Corinthians 10 and 12? Even if you think you can stand up to temptation, be careful not to fall. Paul warned us, he was what you consider a mature person in his faith. He had a lot of Bible under his belt, well educated, and he knew that anybody could fall prey to this. So be on your guard. Don't think that your maturity of faith will prevent you from falling into sin. So mature Christians need to take the same precautions that a new Christian would need to take. Sometimes you may think you're past that, but you need to be just as on guard as they are. Do some of the things they would do when they're learning about their Christian faith. So I put a little list here together. This isn't necessarily all you need to do, but these are some main points. You need to pray for God's leading and strength to keep him first, right? Seek and listen to advice from other mature Christians. And you can look up some of these extra verses on your own this week if you want. Make good choices about where you go and who you are with. That's what gets us in trouble a lot. Who we hang out with, or maybe we go to places that might tempt us, thinking we're mature enough to handle it. I'm looking at Linda. Everybody, I'm looking at Linda.
I noticed that.
And Linda's the one we need
So
to be worried
Pam,
about.
so Pam,
Yeah, Pam's in trouble.
Pam, think about who you're hanging out with. How much time are you spending with Linda? Hey. Pay attention to your attitude or what's in your heart, right? You need to think about where your thoughts are going and what's in the center of your heart. Remember your past sins and the sorrow they brought you in God. Sometimes that will keep you on track. You remember what you did the last time when you fell. Maybe it was 20 years ago, but if you remember it, it might help keep you from falling again into the same trap. And then remember the blessings of obedience. Look at the positive side. When you're obedient, did you receive God's blessings? That might help keep you on track. Remember your testimony. People are watching. There's a good one. Sometimes we forget. I know I have. I was a bad girl once, and I was wearing one of my Christian t-shirts. irritated me, and I maybe wasn't as nice as I should have been. I mean, we all
Always, you're saying, always check your t-shirt.
check your t-shirt. If you think you're having a bad day, don't wear a Christian t-shirt. I don't know. That's really not the moral of the lesson, but don't have a Christian bumper sticker on your car if you're going to speed.
Rachel,
See?
have a little road rage.
Yeah, no road rage while looking Christian, okay?
Don't be human.
We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to sin, but do the things that, remember, people are watching you. And if they know you're a Christian, they're watching you. And so
Many testimonies, well, I wouldn't say testimonies, but so many people that you witness to or that complain about the church, it's always that hypocrite. I used to like our church, but she showed me.
Right.
It's always about some hypocrite in church.
Right.
Almost always.
That's one of the number one things people say. They won't come back to church, or
Things that
they watched you, they were your neighbor. You may invite them to church, but they heard you guys fighting over the fence. So
She's already told you.
I didn't tell Debbie, I didn't tell her.
So you need to, these kind of things can, if you could get them in your head, might help keep you from falling. Okay? And of course, daily time with God. You need daily. Do your best to read your Bible, pray, study, whatever system you can work out for yourself. And of course, I didn't put on here memorize the word. That's a real big key too. So let's read on in Joshua now that I've straightened you all out.
Really quick, so this kind of coincides with what we're learning in, I call it Sunday school. I know I'm an adult, but
That's
I call it
okay.
Sunday school with Steve.
Sunday school. On Sunday.
Yeah, I call it Sunday school, and my husband kind of looks at me, what are you, a child? I don't know.
Still learning all our lives.
But he's actually the last 2 Sundays, and I actually missed one of the Sundays that I think started his teaching on anger and how how we're supposed to how we're supposed to treat each other, believers. And if we have an issue, we leave it at the altar. We go and take care of the problem. And I'm not trying to take up too much space, but this is kind of going off of what he's teaching us, and it's been really good. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm encouraging everyone to come and check it out. Like I said, I missed the first week when I think he was introducing this, but the last 2 weeks have been great. So I'm really, I'm kind of excited about next Sunday because we're going to be moving on. So just encouraging everyone to maybe check
Come to adult Bible school.
Adult Sunday school.
Yeah, he does a good job. Okay, so let's read on in Joshua 9, 16 through 18. And it happened at the end of 3 days, after they had made a covenant with them, that they heard that they were their neighbors who dwelt near them. Then the children of Israel journeyed and came to their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, Chephirah, Beeroth, and Kirjath-jearim. But the children of Israel did not attack them, because the rulers of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord God of Israel. So they made that covenant in God's name. That's how serious they made it. And all the congregation complained against the rulers.
They knew better.
The congregation knew better. Yeah, because you remember.
Hindsight is 20/20 too.
Yeah, true. What other times do you remember the Israelites murmuring and complaining?
Right out of Egypt.
Right out of Egypt, but was there murmuring and complaining for the good? No, they were whining at God about what they thought they were missing, right? Here, they're actually, God's going to use their complaining for the good. They're complaining the right way. They're saying, you shouldn't have made this covenant, Joshua. Shouldn't have done it. So it only took them 3 days to figure this out. And they rode off to go take care of it, so to speak. They weren't going to do anything to them, but you will see what happens. So it's interesting that the complaining actually was used for good. Who would have thought? He's convicting the leaders through the people. So, Joshua 9:19. Then all the rulers said to all the congregation, we have sworn to them by the Lord God of Israel, now therefore we may not touch them. The rulers understood they couldn't break their covenant now. And as I said, a promise is a promise. We all know that saying, right? Can't break a promise. It's important not to. God's people are to be people of their word, just as God is. That's why we keep promises. The Lord keeps his promises to us. We need to be people of the word and stick to it, whatever we've promised. So that's why you don't rush into promises or covenants or contracts, because you've got to be a person of your word. So let's look at some verses on this subject. Leviticus 19:12. You must not use my name to make false promises. If you do that, you will show that you don't respect the name of your God. I am the Lord. And in Numbers 32, if a man makes a special promise to the Lord or makes a promise with an oath, he must not break his promise. He must do everything he said he would do. And then in Matthew 5:37, but let your yes be yes and your no, no. For whatever's more than these is from the evil one. Interesting. You don't think of it that way, do you? That's because you can get in trouble with those promises. And James 5:12, but above all, my brethren, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or with any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no, no, lest you fall into judgment. So James is reiterating what he learned from Jesus. Yeah.
When you first read the Leviticus one, the first thing that came to mind was when we were discussing the Ten Commandments in Sunday school. And, you know, I always tell the kids, like, nowadays, you know, people say, oh my, gee, and you have to stand against that. And if people are saying that, you know, either mention it or walk away or, you know, don't start a fight or anything. But I thought some people say, honest to God, you know.
You're swearing by his name.
Is that right? I'm swearing.
Yeah.
Using God's name in vain.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we've
I
all
didn't
fallen
use
into that
example.
once in a while, but
I know I will.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a reason. Yeah, you're not supposed to do it because you're
Thought of it.
tying God to your promise. You're involving him in your promise, not necessarily what he wants to promise. So yeah. So, not keeping a promise or an oath or a covenant in God's name is a sin that breaks the third commandment. You're taking his name in vain.
Do I get a gold star like
You
Marty?
do, yes, you did very well.
Okay.
Now sometimes you still may need to make a promise or an oath, but you better think seriously about it. You better consult God about it before you just randomly make a promise to someone about something, because you're going to have to keep it. And that's a mistake I think we make sometimes as parents. We promise things to our kids, right? And we've all fallen to that either because of the moment of pressure. Got to get them to stop bugging me, and I promise to take you to the zoo or whatever, and then you don't. You know, you shouldn't do that. It teaches them not to value a promise either, or not to trust adults.
Kathy, one time years and years and years ago, because this kid's probably 23 or 24, it was nap time and he was just talking. And I always sat with him after everybody else was asleep, but he wouldn't stop talking. So I turned around and said, if you would shut up, I could come sit with you faster. And he said, you told me to shut up. And he, like I said, 23 or 24, every time I see him, he says, do you remember telling me to shut up?
Oh.
And I said, I really didn't say shut up. I just said, if you would shut up. So, you know, you gotta be careful what you say.
You have to. They remember everything. They don't remember to do their homework or clean the room, but they remember everything you said to them.
Right.
Right, everything. So sometimes you'll have to make a promise, but you know, be careful. Think about it, pray about it. Don't rush into it like Joshua did. Hebrews.
Kathy, I have a question. Did you read about why he did that from your books and stuff? Why
No,
he did that?
I think he just wasn't thinking. It didn't say. He just rushed into it because he felt comfortable with what they were saying.
I they came with food and they needed, like, I think maybe, here comes these
So he
people
was
offering
actually
food.
convinced.
And he just said, well, these people are good people, they're coming from afar and they brought bread.
Well, you remember what they said? They were very kissing up. We're your servants, and we've heard how great your God
Yeah, so
is, and we just want to come honor you and join you, and blah blah
So he
blah.
was just visually convinced, or what he heard and what he saw.
Yeah.
Convincing.
Yeah, and he shouldn't have done it, but what happens to us? We are convinced all the time by what we see, and instead of thinking things through, the vision is what the devil uses on us a lot of times. What do you call it? The lust of the eyes. It can't give into that. So Hebrews 6:16 says, when anyone wants to settle an argument, they make a vow by using the name of someone or something greater than themselves. So that's the problem with it. When you're making a vow, you're usually making it with God involved, and you're not supposed to do that. So make sure you've consulted God first, and before you do that. So let's read on in Joshua 9. This we will do to them. We will let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swore to them. And the ruler said to them, let them live, but let them be woodcutters and water carriers for all the congregation, as the rulers had promised them. Then Joshua called for them, and he spoke to them, saying, why have you deceived us? Saying, we are very far from you when you dwell near us. Now therefore you are cursed, and none of you shall be freed from being slaves, woodcutters and water carriers for the house of my God. So they're going to have a very specific job. They're going to be working at the tabernacle and the temple later. They are the woodcutters and the water carriers. And there's a lot of water carrying and wood cutting that goes on for that temple. So they answered Joshua and said, because your servants were clearly told that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you, boy, the rumors have just spread all over the land. They know exactly what's supposed to happen to them. Therefore, we were very much afraid for our lives because of you and have done this thing. So we lied because we were afraid. And now, here we are in your hands. Do with us as it seems good and right to do to us. So we did to them and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel so that they did not kill them. So it sounds like they were pretty worked up about this. And that day Joshua made them woodcutters and water carriers for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord in the place which he would choose even to this day. So these lives of the Gibeonites were spared, but their liberty was taken from them.
But it worked out for them because they didn't die.
They didn't die.
So they tricked Joshua,
Uh-huh.
and then they weren't killed.
They weren't killed, but it's going to work out good for Israel in the end multiple ways. And we'll go through those over this next couple of weeks, how this relationship with the Gibeonites is going to actually benefit. God turns those bad things around and works them out for good. And this is going to be a real case in point. Even though they started out to deceive and to join the Israelites through deception, it's going to turn into a whole nother thing as we move along through the story of Joshua. And even beyond Joshua, the Gibeonites are still a part. And it's interesting to see how God turned it around. This whole curse and this servitude thing was actually prophesied of by Noah in Genesis 9:25. Then he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he will be to his brethren. So God always fulfills his word or keeps his promises. So that prophecy, that promise, clear back in Noah's time, is that now being fulfilled. They are going to become servants. So just like God keeps his word, we have to keep our word. Everybody got it? So he tells us about him keeping his word in verses like 2 Corinthians 1:20. For all the promises of God in him are yes, and in him amen, to the glory of God through us. And he also told us, Peter told us in 2 Peter 3:9, the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And there's a wonderful promise right there. He wants everyone to come to know him and to be saved. He's not slack keeping his promises. Sometimes we feel like he's taking too long. But he's on his time schedule, and it's the best time schedule. So, the Gibeonites end up being basically servants to the Levites, servants to the tabernacle, or the tabernacle, and then later to the temple. And the odds are, because they're serving in the faith industry, so to speak, they are going to learn about God while they're doing all this service for the Lord. There's no way they couldn't learn about God working with the Levites, because that's their job. And they're going to have to learn why they're doing all this stuff and what's going on in the tabernacle. And I think that the Gibeonites became known as the Nethinim, or given ones, because of this position. They were given by God, basically, to the Levites to serve. And because of their service, they're going to change their lives for God, as we see as we go along. And one place you read about them is in 1 Chronicles. And the first inhabitants who dwelt in their possessions in their cities were Israelites, priests, Levites, and the Nethinim. So there they show up in 1 Chronicles working with the tabernacle. They're in the tabernacle area. And then in Ezra, the Gibeonites, because Ezra is what happens after clear the Babylonian captivity, right? And they return home. The Gibeonites return with them. They went into captivity with them and come back with them, which is really interesting. You read about that in Ezra. The Nethinim, the sons of Zihah, the sons of Husapha, the sons of Tepoah. So they were listed in the genealogy, the list of people that came back out of Babylonian. They could have stayed in where they were there, but they came back into their places of service back in Israel, back at the tabernacle. So that shows a real change in someone, I would think, that they want to stay in that place of service for the Lord. I think that's interesting. But I think what I love about this lesson is, and what it continues on in the next lesson, is how God, like I said before, turns things around. This was a sin, this was something they shouldn't have done, and God's going to use it to benefit them and bless the congregation. And it's also going to bless the Gibeonites, because their lives are going to be changed because of this. So next week we're going to talk more about them and how this leads to some more victories for Israel even. This whole thing with the Gibeonites is going to lead to another victory. A bunch of victories, actually. So it's pretty cool. Okay?